Welcome to 2 Minutes of Torah. This year is entitled Daf Yomi, Rabbi Batra, Kuf Lametet. The Gemara talks about a person that dies, and he has a Yerusha. How do we split it up? The sons, the daughters. Mishnah offers one possibility that maybe the daughters should get it. They should have the Yerusha, and the sons, they have nothing to do, and they can't earn their own living. They'll have to go and ask people for help. And the Mishnah says, because the boys, they should lose out and not have to be dependent on going around collecting. That's a horrible state to be in. And the Mishnah says, okay, correct. Therefore, we work at a system where the boys will have it in their possession and the girls will also get from there as well. And the Shulchan Aruch Even Ezer Siman Kuf Yud Bet brings us down that they work at a system where it's technically in the boys' possession, but the girls get from that as well. The Ramah says that's all fine and well, assuming that the boys are going and not ruining the investment and taking care of it properly, and they're involved in Yishuv HaOlam. And they're taking care, they're being responsible, earning a living, and taking care of the property properly. And then the girls can also live off of that property. But if not, Beit Din will have to get involved and intervene and possibly just take it away from them or split it up and give it to the girls. The idea of handouts being a horrible situation is so clear from Chazal. And as we said in the previous shiur, a society which has produced people dependent on handouts must take a look at themselves and see what is going on. Just a few examples. The Ramah we just mentioned in Even Ezer Kuf Yud Bet. The opening halacha in the Shulchan Aruch in Hilchot Shabbat, Reish Mem Bet, talks about the halacha. Aseh Shabbat Hatchol, V'atetzrech Lebriut. There are certain times a person should profane his Shabbat. Don't become dependent on handouts. It doesn't mean violating Shabbat HaMalacha, Chas v'Shalom. It means minimizing your Sudot. Don't have a nice Sudah Shlishit. Don't have a Sudah Shlishit at all, maybe, in certain cases. If it means that having the third meal means you have to start depending on handouts, it's a bad situation, and sometimes you must mit tzamtzem and don't have that third meal. Of course, one must go to the halachot to see when that applies, but that's the opening halacha in Reish Mem Bet in Hilchot Shabbat. In the Shulchan Aruch in Yoredeya Hilchot Staka, Reish Nun Aleph in Hilchot Staka, what does it say? That Panasat Atzmo halacha Gimel in Reish Nunav Panasat Atzmo Kodem L'Chol Adam Eno Chayav L'Tit Tzedakah Shtei Lo Panasah. Make sure you take care of yourself first before you go ahead and you start giving to others. You must have a way to sustain yourself. Another halacha in the Shulchan Aruch, Reish Nun Dalid. Reish Nun Dalid Yoredeya Shelo L'Kabel Tzedakah B'Echav. That's the very title of the Siman, is not to take money from others. And it talks about Asal Yisrael told Tzedakah Ben HaOvekam, you cannot take from Goy B'Farhesia publicly. It's an amazing question. If someone goes in and takes money from a government, from the American government, live at the poverty level, and now the government is sustaining you, is that part of this halacha here? You cannot publicly take money from the goyim. Is it only avei kachafim, only idolaters? Is this not considered public because it's handouts that they're sending you to your bank every month? Good question. But I hope the question is being dealt with in a very serious halachic manner. It says here, don't become dependent on others for tzedakah. And it's also especially to become dependent on goyim. Have certain societies gotten themselves into this situation? Reish Nun Hey in Yoredeya Hilchot Tzedakah Laharchik Mikabalata. Go far away from accepting tzedakah. The halacha starts off La'olam Yarchik Adam Atzmo Me'atzedakah. He should always be far from tzedakah. V'galgel atzmo b'tza'ar. Put yourself in a situation of tza'ar, difficulty and challenge. Shelo yitztarech libriut. So that you are not dependent on others. I just mentioned a few examples. I mentioned Lachin Kuf Yud Bet in Even Ezer, that the boys should be taking properly care of the property, and if not, the non-valid Yishuv Olam, Beit Din will intervene. That's in Even Ezer. Or Chaim opening halacha Reish Mem Bet, Hilchot Shabbat, Yoredeya Hilchot Tzedakah. Several halachot. Reish Nun Aleph, Reish Nun Dalet, Reish Nun Hey. Those are just a few examples. Those are 5 examples scattered a little bit in Even Ezer, Yarden, or Chaim. This is our Mesorah, not to become dependent. To be able to make a living, teach your child a living, he could sustain himself. He could sustain himself. In a society where people, masses, are not able to get by and are dependent on others, they need to look in, Sarach Ian. And even for the sake of Talmud Torah and perpetuating Torah, that's a beautiful value. That value must be looked into, of course, and embraced together with all 4 halakim of the Shulchan Aruch and a complete Mesorah Shalom.